money. Uh, that's what I'm going to start talking about today, and I'll probably talk about it for the next 4 or 5 days because this is kind of segments of a bigger project, and you can see where my mind goes with a lot of this stuff. Uh, so, money is something like I really started learning about hmm, maybe 10 years ago. And when I say learning about it, I mean like taking serious to some extent. Like, mm, 10 years ago, started getting serious about like how I could leverage is the wrong word. I didn't learn that until later, about how I can do better with money. Yeah, that would be that would be accurate. And then before that, I think I've always been very fortunate that and unfortunate. Like, uh, it wasn't really bad with the money, and I was in the military prior to this as well, and I got a lot of good training there, focused around don't make bad financial decisions and get ridiculous rates of credit. And, really now that I'm thinking about it, like I can remember the specific event that probably set my tone. Uh, yeah, that set my tone with money. I remember sitting listening to a conversation, my mother and my grandmother, and yeah, I remember my grandmother asking my mom what would happen if you grabbed the last bit of money you had and ran off and bought something with it compared to buying the milk or the food that you need. And it sounded like the antics of a child. And I thought they were talking about me. I think I was 8 or 9 at the time. And they were not talking about me. I didn't really figure that out until, oh, 5 or 6 years ago. Not that I was trying to figure it out. Like, it just never really dawned on me until about 5 or 6 years ago. Like, really thought about it. It's like, but I think that kind of anchored my view on money. And I was raised by my grandparents, and well, they were not really my grandparents, but they were my great aunt and uncle, and well, they grew up in the Depression era. So I have a bit of that old old blood in me, and we grew up. I don't know if you use modern definitions of money. We grew up in poverty, but it really felt like that because we grew in the garden and did all those things that I don't know, just seemed normal to me. Like you never. I was oblivious that we were poor. Let's put it that way. Like I never needed for anything. So I guess that's not poverty. Like we weren't making those decisions. I got to get across the room. Anyway, so that's I think where I got my initial relationship about money. So that kept me out of a lot of trouble. Nah, I still did some stupid stuff with money, but I never got like really crazy with it. I don't think I ever got more than not even $6,000 7,000 in credit card debt. Everything else I had was secured. Uh, and then there was a time I did lose a vehicle to repossession, but it's still I don't think it all amassed to that much. And then my wife, she's had a particularly good relationship with money. She only took loans she needed to. Anyway, point is, we weren't in that deep of a hole. By the time we got serious about learning about money, and first started learning about debt, paying that off, started learning about interest rates. Anyway, as things progressed, we ended up paying off the house, and then uh, I kept digging and digging, trying to get more and more sophisticated about money. And later, I went to college, learned accounting, about accounting, I should say. Like I had a few classes on accounting and economics, and so on. Learned some, you know, kind of started to see behind the curtain of the way money works. And then from that, I just kept digging and digging and digging, and tied in a bunch of different questions to money. Uh, Biblical passage of, the root of all evil is money, which I've read into a lot, and apparently that's misattributed. This is the root of all kinds of evils, but it's a completely different debate. And I've started exploring, like, why do we put so much emotion and feeling into money? And then started asking questions like, what is free? What is cost? What is money? Uh, Things like that. And then that's kind of where these discussions are going to go as I dive into the topic. So, like, I'll go ahead and say the ending before the beginning, because I think it's so abstract that it will take the subsequent videos to unpack. And that is, I think, well, first, nothing's free. I think everybody does something for some type of exchange. We somehow married the word free with money in our modern world, and it's just not an accurate representation. And then also, uh, we look up to those people that are selfless, and we tend to look down on the people that are selfish, particularly when it comes to money. But in reality, there's always an exchange, a transference of something, and that's kind of what's led me to my final conclusion that money is a store of energy. And I don't mean like the woo woo, the universe, energy, anything like that. But the more I think about it, I think I try to relate it to the money is like a battery. And that battery, like a battery, is a store of energy. It's like, what do you go do for money? You go exchange your time and your energy, your mental capital, and then they give you money. And then you use that money to get other things that you want. It's just exchanging energy from one place to another, extracting energy, expending energy. That's ultimately been my conclusion. Now, I've also found that particularly helped my relationship with money. It's just a foundational observation that I've come to, but I hadn't quite figured out how to implement it yet. So I guess that's where these conversations are going. I'm making a much longer piece about money. So it's a completely different project from this, so you'll never see it here. But these are a bunch of little essay type conversations to where I can get the information at least to a format that I can transcript, and then from those transcriptions, I'll have my notes available whenever I put the majority of everything together. So I guess I've really given the thesis and I've kind of laid the groundwork, but I'm starting, I've pretty much been rambling the whole time and not really accomplishing, not getting any new ideas out there other than my core thesis. So I think I'll cut that off here and try and continue tomorrow.